Hi everyone, my name is Maris Finn. I am the Development Associate at the Texas Book Festival, and I'll be hosting your literary lunch break today. Thanks for tuning in to the literary lunch break. We are going to give Mary, Pauline, Lowry just a couple minutes to join us. She's the author of the Roxy Letters, which is a hysterical novel set in Austin in 2012. And we're super excited that she is joining us today. If you're new to Texas Book Festival's Literary Lunch Break, welcome. If you've seen us a few times, welcome back. We started this series a few weeks ago when everyone started staying home, and we've been programming pretty consistently ever since. We have a mix of adult, YA, middle grade, children's programming. We really want to be a resource for authors who, their book tours were maybe canceled during this whole thing. So we just want to make sure that we're bringing you, authors, to your homes during your lunch break. Let's see, Mary is not here with us quite yet, but has anybody read the Roxy Letters yet? You can put in a little comment at the bottom, or maybe you want to read the Roxy Letters. Are you welcoming more authors? Yes, we're going to have more authors over the next few weeks with us during this live series. Thanks for your question. Does anybody else have any questions about our series here? We try to offer a mix of different kind of authors. The Roxy Letters we're super excited about because it is set in Austin. And if you haven't picked it up yet, there are a lot of shout outs to really cool Austin area organizations. Oh, there she is. Okay, let's see. Hi.
Hi, Maris. How's it going?
Good. Thanks so much for joining us. Oh, I
I'm
love
so
your
excited to be here. Thank you. Yes, they go with the book cover.
I also got my hearts for the occasion.
Oh, thank you. That's so sweet. I love it.
Of course. Well, welcome. Welcome to Texas Book Festival's Literary Lunch Break. Now that you're here, I'm going to tell everyone who's with us a little bit about you and about the book and why we're so excited that you're here with us. So Mary Pauline was born and raised in Austin, Texas. She is the author of the novel The Roxy Letters, which was published by Simon & Schuster just last week. She has an MA in creative writing and English from the University of Texas and an MFA in creative writing from Boise State University. She is also the author of the novel Wildfire and is a regular contributor to O Magazine. Her work has appeared in the New York Times Magazine, The Millions, and other publications. And we are super excited to have you here today. Set in Austin in 2012, we meet Roxy, who is an aspiring artist currently spending her days working at the deli counter in the original Whole Foods. The book is told epistolarily in a series of letters, both sent and unsent, to Everett, who is her ex-boyfriend and current roommate. So, Mary Pauline, would you like to read a little bit from your book to bring us into Roxy and the Roxy Letters?
Sure. So I'm just going to read the first couple of paragraphs of the book.
Great.
And this is Roxy's first letter to her ex-boyfriend, Everett, who, as you said, is living in her spare bedroom. And this is right when he's moving in. So June 14th, 2012, regarding ground rules. Dear Everett, perhaps I've invited you to move into my spare bedroom against my better judgment. But while living with an ex-boyfriend is never a good idea, I really need the money. Last week, Roscoe, that irascible little wiener dog, ate not one, but 2 pairs of my fancy underwear, and my thongs at that. The resulting $600 emergency room vet bill, combined with my barely over minimum wage employment and sizable mortgage, has made a housemate a financial necessity. When you called to report you were getting kicked out of your highly desirable backyard shack, aka the Bat Cave, because your landlady's daughter called dibs, the perfect timing of our crises was like a sign from Venus. While normally I would have reservations about the possibility of a successful platonic roommate situation between former lovers, it's been years since we broke up, and we've been getting along great since reuniting as friends. So I have high hopes we can both handle this mutually beneficial and temporary living arrangement.
Thank you so much for reading that. If you're just joining us, we're here with Mary Pauline Lowry, author of the Roxy Letters. And I love that you read that because we really get Roxy's voice and sets the tone. So I'll just go ahead and jump in with some questions, and then we can have a little discussion, and maybe we can leave time for one or two audience questions at the end. And if you're tuning in, you can leave a comment at the bottom, and we can try to get to them at the end. Okay, so why don't you tell us a little bit more about Roxy? We know that she works at Whole Foods, the original Whole Foods, as a deli maid. She's got a complicated relationship with her ex-boyfriend, and maybe she's not quite a fully functioning adult quite yet. So what drew you to write a character like Roxy, and maybe why is she our entryway into Austin in 2012? Mm-hmm.
So Roxy is artistically stymied. Like she has a talent painting and drawing, but she's not really making her art. She feels underemployed. She's very well educated. She's very well read. And she's living this sort of slacker Austin lifestyle that was really prevalent when I was growing up in Austin in the 90s, where there's an importance placed on sort of keeping it real and doing your art, and that is more important than kind of thriving in other ways. And so I really wanted to show a character that is in that situation. And she also really spends a lot of time griping and complaining about Austin growing and changing. And that's something that I've heard from many, many people all my life. So ever since I was a small child, people always told me how much better Austin used to be. And I think Austin is still really great. And so I really had fun with that, having a character that was really into bloviating about the ways Austin is changing.
Yeah, well, that's so funny because 2012 doesn't actually seem like that long ago, but in Austin time, it's like a lifetime.
Huge, yes.
I've only been in Austin since 2015, but since then I've seen whole neighborhoods change and all of that. So I wanted to ask you about 2012 and why that seems important to you, and what it means for Austin at that time.
So for me, Obama was president, Amazon hadn't been bought by Whole Foods. And that was one of the main things. Was I started this book right after Amazon bought Whole Foods. And as we all know, Whole Foods started in Austin, and Roxy is really into local businesses and supporting local businesses. And she still sees Whole Foods as a local business, even though at that point it was a multi-billion-dollar corporation. So it was important for me to show Austin at that time, but also, traffic has grown exponentially since 2012. Just so many people have moved in. So that, to me, that year seemed a little bit, there are many tipping points of change, but that year seemed like a point where a lot of things, it was a moment before things changed even more. And she's really sensing that, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. And especially Lululemon, that seems to be the inciting action when Lululemon comes to town.
Yes.
So did that actually happen? Did Lululemon come to Austin in 2012?
No, it was more, I'm guessing more like 2004 or 2006. Waterloo Video used to be right around the corner from Waterloo Records.
Okay.
And that was my favorite indie video store. And the employees would write little notes about the films that they would put on the films and on sticky notes. And
yeah,
they were
I love
always
that detail.
So sassy. And so when Waterloo Video closed down, you know, partially because technology was just changing, you know, video stores were not gonna last. And the Lululemon moved in real life, it was something that just like really got under my skin. And every time I drove by for years, I would just be like grumbling about it. So I said that in 2012, which is, you know, not historically accurate, but it has the same effect on Roxy, only she really takes it many steps further and decides that she's going to take action, and it's going to be her great work in life to like get the Lululemon out of that location and get some kind of store there that is like worthy of the Six and Lamar location in her mind.
Mm-hmm. The Six and Lamar location, which is home still to Waterloo Records and Book People and some other great places, which leads me to my next question about specific Austin landmarks. So many Austin landmarks, very famous ones, and some more under the radar ones. What were your favorite ones to write about? And are there ones that you didn't get to put in, but you wish you had?
So I really enjoyed writing about Book People because I used to work at Book People, and it's such an iconic bookstore. Yeah, I worked there in the late 90s. And Roxy works at Thundercloud, Subs, and Barton Springs, and I have also worked at those places. It was fun to put in little bars and coffee shops like Deep Eddy Cabaret or Spider House that are really locals' favorites that have been around for a long time. I'm trying to think what didn't make it in that would have been fun. Like she never swims at Deep Eddy. I mean, there's so many bars that she could have gone to, but it was fun. I went through and tracked like all the local businesses for a list for some sort of marketing something. It was so fun to see that there really were tons of places that she goes or talks about. So fun.
Well, and a lot of them are still there. I mean, like Emos is there, and I mean that neighborhood is changing so much, but you still go to Emos and it still feels like Emos.
Yeah, and at the time Emos was downtown, so the Emos she goes to was the like original location. And now I haven't been to the new. It's on Riverside, correct? The new location. I haven't been there, so that's something that has like changed in a way, but is still going. And I love that like. Even though Austin evolves, it's still funky and weird and full of local businesses. So,
yeah. Well, so this is your second novel. Do you think you will keep writing about Austin, especially because it continues to grow and change and has so many of those same, I guess, growing pains with gentrification and changing, but a lot of new ones. So does that inspire you at all?
Yeah, I hope so. I'm a fourth generation Austinite, and you know, the city means a lot to me, and I would love to keep writing about it. And there's just so much great material. There's, you know, whenever I go home, my friends are up to such wacky, interesting things always. And yeah, I just think there's a lot there.
So do you miss, or what do you miss the most about, because you're not in Austin right now?
No, right now I live in Boise, Idaho. I just finished an MFA and I wrote this book as my project. So what do I miss about Austin? So I miss my friends and family, obviously. I miss Tex-Mex. I miss running around the hike and bike trail. Yeah.
Yeah, we of course all miss those things, even if we're here right now. We can't really necessarily do that.
No, so you understand. Yeah, no, that's a strange thing to be in the town that you love and not be able to experience all those things. But I do think that there are ways still to support, even though we can't go to like Book People, we can support local businesses. So, you know, that's one thing that I'm trying to do is like order books from Book People and see how I can still, you know, support local businesses so that they're still there when all this is over.
Exactly. So are you working on anything new right now that you can talk about to us?
So just today I'm working on an essay for Texas Monthly that will hopefully come out in the June issue. That's about growing up going to Whole Foods. Like I started going to the original Whole Foods when I was 4 years old when it opened in 1980. So it's kind of an essay about Whole Foods being really important to me all my life. So that's the main thing that I've been working on like the last few weeks. Before I started really promoting the Roxy Letters, I was working on another longer project, but it's kind of early days to talk about it. But I'm hoping that it'll be also a comedic novel that's kind of fun and escapist.
Mm-hmm. That is definitely how I would describe the Roxy Letters. It's definitely fun. It's definitely escapist for right now when you want just something fun to read. And it was really funny. So
Oh, thank you.
yeah, I was laughing out loud at some point. So really enjoyed it. So I saw one question come in about which neighborhood in Austin did you grow up in?
So my dad lives in Tarrytown. So I was born in a house in Tarrytown. Then I lived, when my parents divorced, my mom lived in Clarksville and then Hyde Park. And then once I was out on my own, I usually lived in Clarksville, where I could still like walk to Whole Foods and book people. Although sometimes I lived with friends a little further south, like in 04. So always just super central.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does anybody else have any questions while we still have Mary Pauline here with us? Give a second for comments to come in. Well, thank you so much for joining us today, Mary Pauline. The Roxy Letters is available wherever books are sold, online right now. Oh, okay, we have a question. Is it hard to structure a novel around letters?
I felt like it was very easy to write because every day I would say to myself, like, oh, I'm going to try to write one letter today. And I could usually do that. I did, for structuring, I was taking a class on novel structure in my MFA program. And so I wrote a full synopsis of the book that got workshopped by my brilliant fellow students and my professor. And so that actually it didn't seem that hard. It seemed in some ways easier to me than structuring a novel that didn't have that sort of framework.
You know, that brings up another question that I had while I was reading it, which was the decision to have her write the letters to Everett. And so can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I grappled with that a lot because she starts out writing letters to Everett. And there's like a legitimate reason for her to be writing them because she has these complaints and he doesn't have a cell phone. And then eventually the letters are almost more like diary entries. Like she doesn't give them to Everett, but she's the sort of person that would never admit to herself that she was writing a diary, but feels very comfortable like writing letters of complaint. And so I just thought that was sort of funny, and I loved the idea of someone who's like spending all their time writing letters to an ex who's living with them. So I liked that was just kind of absurd, and it just made the novel really fun to write and hopefully fun to read. And it has been strange, trying to promote a novel during a pandemic when so many people are going through so many terrible things, but what I am hoping is that this is something that gives people an escape and makes people laugh. And I was watching this masterclass ad for Judd Apatow's class. He's a producer, and he said like comedy is important because life is hard. And I wrote the book after the 2016 election when I needed an escape. And I hope that now in this difficult time, it gives people a chance to just kind of laugh and forget about their worries for a bit.
Definitely. I think comedy is so important, as you said, at this time. I think we had one more question before we wrap up, and that is, it came in, how did Roxy's character develop over the time that you were writing it?
So strangely, she just came to me completely fully formed. I didn't have an idea for a book, but I was just doing an exercise in class with my undergraduate students. I gave them an exercise to write a letter from a really quirky character to someone they were mad at. And I wrote my first Roxy letter, and it was a complete surprise. And I thought, it really hit my funny bone. And so I thought, well, tomorrow I'll write another one of these letters and see what happens. And so I didn't really have to do any sort of work to develop her. She just kind of like showed up with her voice just fully formed, which was really a surprise. And it was a happy surprise for me. Yeah.
That's great. The voice is so specific and so like loud in a way. Like I feel like I know her.
Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for your questions. For the viewers, thank you for sending in your questions. Yes, the Roxy Letters is available, especially through Austin bookstores who have their affiliate pages through bookshop.org. And also, if you like what we've been doing here at the Texas Book Festival over the past few weeks, and you want to see us, definitely keep tuning in. And also, if you want to support us, you can go to texasbookfestival.org/donate, because it's a hard time for nonprofits out there, especially in the arts, and we really appreciate you joining us in this time. So have a good rest.